did not record. I was so sad. I'm
Oh
talking about
no.
sad. And that's normally like one of the first things that I do, but we were having trouble with just switching and connecting on both of our ends. And when it finally did, we just kind of got into it and forgot. And I'm like,
Oh
I'm never
no.
doing that again. Yeah, I'm like, this too much.
Well,
Um,
hopefully our session will continue because last time we got cut off twice with that
yes,
part.
yes, I don't have time. This is
Today's a better
actually
day.
right. Thank God. Look, this is the question that we left off on. So we'll go ahead and we can finish up today. And then when we finish up today, I just want you to study your videos up until we meet again next week. And then we're going to be looking at some bills, but I'm going to send you an assignment first. So out of the bills and the agreements that you sent me, I'm going to send you an assignment based off of that before we meet up again next
Sounds
week.
good.
Okay.
Cool.
So we left off on what was an authorized act. An authorized act is when the principal is liable for participating in, directing, or approving a criminal act of its agent, like maybe accepting that cash. That's
Right.
us authorizing them to participate and direct us to some criminal acts. Like we don't want to do that. So we're gonna stay away from cash because they asked us not to send cash in our agreements, and they asked us not to send cash when we actually receive what we need to make payment with. What we need is that negotiable instrument to make payment with. As an agent, as a representative of a consumer uses that consumer debt note so that it satisfies its obligations to pay a merchant or
Right.
pay to a merchant for a seller. We're always doing something on the behalf of another.
Okay.
So, in what ways can or what does an individual signature look like? Signatures are normally specified if there is an individual signing a record. So, anytime when you think about a signature or you hear them say they want a signature, they're going to be looking for a specified person. When we receive our bill, that specified person is left off. They give us the opportunity and the time to go ahead and specify the person who is acting as the agent before we allow our credits to lapse and someone of that company or who represents that company go ahead and specify their signature and actually benefit from our check. We're not going to let them do that.
Right.
So, as an individual, we're going to be accepting our goods in the mail and remitting them to the bank. But before we do that, we're going to be signing them to negotiate the document and give it some value. We cannot negotiate the document without signing it. And once we sign it, of course, we know that's what we use and assign to another, a third party like that merchant. So below is just ways that we're able to sign. You may sign just your first name, last name. You can sign your first name, last name as an agent, a representative for the consumer, your all caps name. And this is the universal way that I taught everybody to sign in class. Just because I didn't know what specific situation everybody had going on, it just makes way that it warrants to another person that an agent is acting, and it just leaves everything kind of level field.
Right. Yeah.
You also may sign your first and last name agent without recourse, warranting to the other person that you don't mind or you don't have any type of limitations placed on them with how they're able to utilize your document. They either can collect or deposit. You don't really care. You don't have any recourse and you don't want it back. You also can sign your first name, last name by accommodation party. So letting them know that you are the one in the transaction to be accommodated. You're asking for your account to be deposited or EFT for your accommodation, a natural person, or not even a natural person, my apologies, an individual.
Right.
You can also sign as your first and last name by accommodation for deposit or collection. You can let them know that you're actually signing to be accommodated for one or the other. So if you're conducting a resale and you're dealing with that actual person, you may want to sign it to them and tell them that you want to be accommodated for whatever reason that they can perform. And 9 times out of 10, these companies will collect what we send and they'll make the EFT, they'll make the deposit. They always warn to us that if we sign, we authorize them to make a one-time EFT. And if we decide that we want to send our bill back to them, then we have to let them know that we're sending it back to them for accommodation for them to do what they can do, which would be deposit.
Right.
A financing agency, a merchant, they're going to be the one collecting the good because they're going to be using it.
Okay.
Do you follow me? How you feel?
Yeah. No,
Anything
it
to
makes sense. Makes sense.
Okay, and these are just basic ways with basic instructions. It tells a lot. It's given who's authorizing and what exactly is that person authorizing to happen. Once we do that, then we can give the assignment to the third person. The third person, even though they can do what they want to do with the instrument, just as long as they get the price over to who's instructed on the document, and or they might know that they can collect or deposit it, or you might leave it free and clear and just sign. At least
Okay.
if you do that, sign with your social security number after. And that will be for purposes of identification because as we saw before, you don't want any misappropriation based on who it is supposed to benefit. Because if you look at that document, it has one account number on there and it's the account number of the actual company. So they identify themselves. So if you sign free and clear, you want to sign with your social security number so that you identify yourself as an individual. That's your account number. Your account number is going to fund their account number from one account to another. And it's not actually using the same account that they gave you.
Right.
They all tell you, not to pay them from the account that you have with them.
Yeah.
Pay from your own. So how do you feel? You with me? You kind of, you get how simple that it really can be.
Right. Yep.
So what does payment mean? When necessary, the word payment can mean remittance. So this is going to be interchangeable. Remittance and payment is going to be something that, you'll pick up a warranty on what it is that they're speaking about. But anytime they ask you to make payment with or pay with payment, send coupon with payment, they're telling you with the remittance. Send your payment, your delivery of this good with the coupon, with the remittance. You know that little message they give you?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
I've
that
seen
message. Yeah, that
that.
message. And we're going to see it visually, trust me, but you do know what I'm speaking of, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. That way you know that with what you're bearing, use it, detach it, and make payment with it. Send it along. Send that check along. So it indicates that something, even the word pay, when you see the word pay, just to kind of jog your memory and not have any questions of, you're sending back to the third part, to the seller who you initiated the contract with, you could just know that when we see pay or payment, we know we are replacing that with payment, with remittance and remit. So we know that we do those things with a financing agency, a bank, a merchant.
Right.
So it indicates that something has been given to you and it has been transferred to another. Now we do have the or here. I say and because I play on both. I receive payment from the seller and I also transfer that payment to another. I never only operate on just receiving or being given a payment. I always use it and remit it. I
Right.
always use it to pay with.
Makes sense.
With payment, it is instruction to deliver the remittance as known as remit to another. So you will see like a bill come from the seller to you and they'll ask you to pay to someone else, but they may actually use the word remit. Another word would be make or mail. And they're instructing you. That serves as an instruction. An instruction for you to deliver the fund transfer to that person. Not necessarily the good, but just to that person who you see, but through this address.
Right.
Payment in commerce is the transfer of goods from one person to another and then to a third party. So here we are with that triangle: seller, buyer, trader. Buy, sell, trade these goods, these documents, having honesty and observing the uniform commercial code and understanding that that's what we use to perform to our agreements that we have with anybody. It never changes. The elements of contracting, acceptance, offer, and consideration never changes unless you stop the money flow. Or you give up a US debt note. You use it someone else's property besides your own property. You
What do you
have
mean by
any
using someone else's? What do you mean by using someone else's property?
because if you use the US debt note, then you just use the United States dollar to pay. That's using somebody else's
Oh,
property versus using your consumer note to pay.
right. Okay. Makes sense.
So we don't want to use somebody else's property. That's why they like do not send cash, do not send cash because we're sending you exactly what you're able to use. The consumers know. Use your consumer note and pay it to another person, a third party, somebody who can actually use that financial asset on a financial market. I'm just going to charge you a percentage. because I
Mm.
transferred it to you so that you can benefit. And it's either going to be that minimum payment or an APR.
Right.
If you transfer cash to me, then at least make it the minimum payment, the lowest I could take, and it's going to be based on the APR. If you decide that you want to use your good and deliver your goods to the merchant, they're going to be exchanging your document at that rate, at the APR rate. Like I just did my Navy Federal. I'm exchanging my good with them at 0.25%. That's how much they're going to earn from making the transfer or making the change from a debit to credit on my account. They earn 0.25%. You know, when we looked at the back of that Navy Federal bill and it had rank and rate,
Right.
that's the APR percent. So at that rate, that's how much you're going to be exchanging this document for.
Mm.
Whatever the minimum payment is, you're going to get that, and I'm going to get the remainder of the full price.
Right.
You understand?
Yes.
Okay, great. So what is remit? What does remit mean? Remit has the meaning of pay. The two are interchangeable as is needed. So when a seller is speaking, 9 times out of 10, they're going to be telling us to pay too. When we're speaking to a merchant, they're going to be telling us to remit. And that gives off warranties that I'm dealing with someone who wants me to remit back to them. So maybe I'm dealing with someone who wants a resale. Or maybe they want me to return the good to them so they can resell it.
Mm.
So the two are going to be interchangeable. And when we see them on different bills, I'm definitely going to bring out the, point it out to you so that you notice it, because pay is something that a seller is going to say, and remit is something that someone who's considered a bank is going to say.
Oh, okay.
So that's how you're going to distinguish the difference and pick up the warranties that you remit your good to a financing agency.
Nice.
So when you remit, you pay. When you're remitting, you're paying, and your remittance equals payment. For as
Okay.
long as you are remitting to an appropriate person like a third party. We're always going to be sending to the merchant. You're going to see in a lot of agreements, the seller is going to be talking. They're going to say what the borrower and the buyer get, and then you're just going to see them say merchant.
Okay.
They're indicating somebody different than them,
Right.
unless they're able to work in the same capacity. And you'll know that based upon what's agreed.
Okay.
Remit with payment, it equals pay with remittance. Make payment with equals mail/send remittance with that payment that you just received. Do
Okay.
you understand? You follow me?
Yeah.
Okay. It's crazy, right? Ain't that like a weird little Shakespeare type
Yeah.
language? Like, what? You telling me to pay with, and then they throw in that check at the end. Like, yeah, the negotiable instrument. Don't get it confused. Everybody keeps saying that negotiable instrument is a check, but when they see check, they just don't relate it to negotiable instruments. They think they gotta add something else.
Right.
And it's like they're talking about what you have in your hand. Use that non-negotiable instrument and pay with it. Use it to
Right.
mail and remit it to a third party. So that's always what we're going to be doing based on the elements of offer, acceptance, and consideration. We're going to consider remitting this good to a financing agency, a bank, someone who can accept it for value, besides using the U.S. debt note to actually pay for the good and let it sit.
Nice.
If we do that, we're going to be using a payment voucher with the United States to claim everyone we allow to sit. What are you thinking? Are you with me? How
Yeah,
you
I'm
feeling?
with you.
Okay. So what is a purchase? You're going to see purchases in a lot of your agreements. And when you see purchases, it is typically what you would see on a lot of your credit card documents, a lot of things where you're dealing with something that is revolving, or you're dealing with a price and receiving a statement, because you're making purchases with both. You're using the service, which may be your accepted credit card. And then when you receive your bill in the mail, that certificate of security, you're going to be taking it. So you're going to be purchasing that as well.
Okay.
So you're going to see purchases on your document for two reasons. One, to represent the price of the goods and the services you're purchasing from. So that price is going to be the amount that you're taking that document for, hence amount due. If you want to accept this document, the amount due is the price. So that's
Right.
one way to indicate that you've made a purchase.
Okay.
A person to person transaction, that is when you decide to accept your good for value and you sign and authorize it and you send it to that merchant. That's a person to person transaction from the consumer to the merchant. And it's going to become between merchants.
Okay.
And that's going to complete the delivery of your item, your good. You will be charged with purchases when you make with your accepted credit card. So that's where people get confused and they say that the credit limit is the price. Like, yeah, that's one price. That's one price that you made with the purchases where you were actually using that accepted credit card from them. But then you have another purchase, which is going to be the purchase of you actually taking and obtaining that statement that they send you later, actually dealing with the good and not what you use to obtain service.
Right.
The purchase you make of your credit card, I direct you to see the CFPB definitions of purchasing because that means to obtain. But we actually looked at that in our last session when we were talking about Navy Federal. Remember when we went to the CFPB?
Yes.
They have the definitions of purchase there too, and that just means to obtain. So each and every time that we receive this bill at our home, we have the option to obtain it. We have the option to take it, and if ever we take and obtain it and we sign and we authorize the use of it, we have purchased it. We are what's considered a good faith purchaser, and by delivering it to that merchant and that third party, we become protected. So now we are protected purchaser.
Okay.
So what do you think? Any thoughts, like anything to elaborate on? Can you tell me something about purchasing?
Purchasing just means that we are not only purchasing using the accepted credit card, but the actual goods that they send us. And
Exactly. So
as long as we're transferring it over and continuing in that process by moving it or transferring it, that's how we stick to our obligations. Or
exactly, because according to Commerce, when we transfer titles by way of using these documents and we obtain them and acquire them from one another, we're making purchases.
purchases. Yeah.
Anytime we're using these documents and we agree to initiating a security agreement and then we receive these documents, anytime we take them, we're purchasing. We're the buyer, so we're purchasing for as long as we sign.
Right. And we'll do it every month
Every
until
single
our
month.
yeah.
Yeah, and have great payment history and everything.
Nice.
Purchasing. When these merchants take from us, they purchase. So a purchase can be your credit limit. So we know that, right? Everybody pretty much knows that, right?
Right.
I want you to eliminate it out your mind. I want you to forget about it.
Okay.
I want you to only know that if you're going to pay cash.
Okay.
You're obtaining and you're purchasing pursuant to your agreement, that statement, because it is considered a cash advance. So I want you to know that your credit limit with that good, that bill, that statement you receive is a cash advance, okay?
Okay.
So they transfer that balance to you by way of that negotiable instrument, and when you obtain and you take it for the purposes of a cash advance. A
Right.
cash
Because
advance
when
is
we transfer it over, they're advancing the cash to them.
yes, and we
Cash.
advanced the cash to them. We advanced the cash, our
Right.
document, our colorful money. We advanced it to the financing agency, so now they can pay the price for it. You're gonna see always in our agreement cash advances because everybody is gonna be participating in delivering someone some sort of cash, non-cash payment. And we're advancing it to one another so that we can, in enough time, so that we can satisfy our obligations to pay.
Nice.
So when I upload that screenshot and I say, what's the credit limit? To you, your credit limit is either going to be a balance transfer or a cash advance because those are the two things that you can do with the good. We're not talking about the service. We know that credit limit. But what are your credit limits when it comes to using this good? One, use it to conduct the balance transfer. And to two, cash advance. Those are your credit limits. That's something that you're always going to see on bills. Or you may even see payment, which we know means remittance.
Nice.
Okay, so a cash advance is when you are charged with paying cash. So you may give the seller a cash advance if you use a US debt note. You may advance cash to them on your own. You may have money. Or you can pay with a cash equivalent, like a money order, a check, foreign currency. And that's what we're going to use to pay every single time. We're going to not use a USD. We're going to use a currency that's foreign to us. We don't know it.
Right.
It just came to us with a dollar sign in the price. That's all we know. We know that on the back they asked us to pay in USD, but we're not paying them, so we don't care unless we actually going to be paying them USD. We know how they want to accept it, but when the merchant receive it, they'll understand because they're going to give them an EFT transfer in that currency within the United States jurisdiction. Now, that document that they paid for, that's in foreign currency, they're able to exchange that currency at the rate, at any rate. So ain't no telling where that document gonna be stored at for value.
Right.
We hold ourselves out of trade, and so we don't know. Do you have any questions or anything?
That makes sense.
Okay. So what is a balance transfer? A balance transfer is another charge. So I want you to notice that we're dealing with charges. So
Okay.
credit limit is a charge. A cash advance is a charge. Your balance transfer is a charge. And you're liable for the sum of all of these charges. Do you understand?
Yes.
Okay. So here we are with the finance charge, sum of all charges. And when we do add up all of this, we're going to get our full balance.
Okay.
So a balance transfer is another charge to pay the amount that is owed on another credit card account. So we're going to be using our statement, that card, or is considered to be a card, a check, according to CFPB. We're going to be taking that and using it to pay another credit card, which is the credit card that we're using for the service.
Okay. That makes
That
sense.
means that you have two credit cards with the corporation. And when you look into agreements, it's going to say the consumer credit cards with an S,
Right.
because
I
the
remember
consumer
that
is going
seeing
to
the
get.
video.
I'm sorry, go ahead. I want to hear.
Oh, I remember that you saying about the cards from
Yeah.
the video of your credit, the credit one video. You spoke about that.
Yes. So our accepted credit card that we received from them, that one that's all pretty and cute that they gave us to make purchases with in public.
Uh-huh.
And then we're going to get that statement. And that's also considered to be a credit card. We're going to be using that for credit. It's in the shape of a card too. When you detach it, it's rectangle, just like a card.
Right.
Both
Right.
of those are credit cards. And that credit card takes on the form of a check, something that we're able to use and have the balance from that credit card transferred to another account that we have, the accepted credit card account. So we're using that one thing to pay another, not the same thing to pay the same thing. We're not self dealing. We're
Right.
always paying another, always. So in order to create this medium of exchange and keep the flow going, we must receive two credit cards. So we're going to have the accepted credit card, and we're going to have the actual remittance, which is also known to be a credit card according to the CFPB. This is the stuff that they care about. You notice that we're not mentioning the FTC because we're no longer dealing with your consumer credit contract. We're dealing with a bill, a good. So the CFPB cares about how that credit is being handled and remitted. Only if you remitted it to the correct person. So let's say you had a problem with remitting it to the financing agency, or they didn't take it for whatever reason. They are fined the value of that amount. They let us know that in the bill. If for whatever reason it is denied, we are limited to the price of it. The CFPB is going to make sure you get that price if ever they act crazy. Do you understand?
Yeah.
But they not
I
though,
seen
because they're
that.
going to
I
make
seen
sure.
that in your post. You said you had a somebody's paper saying that something like they won't take it. They won't take
Yeah,
the check that they was sent. I seen that. That made a
right. And
lot of
see,
sense.
and you know that wouldn't be a case in this where they acted crazy and the CFPB want to know, because that person was doing direct business with Chase. So should they be sending it back to Chase?
No.
Depending on that type of card they had, if it's an Amazon card, then it's going to be going back to somebody else and it's just going to be getting paid through Chase, but not you sending back to them because that's who you initiated your agreement with. Chase has someone who they work with.
Right.
They'll even say in the agreement, if you want to return it back to me, it has to be a certain way because they are a financing agency. They are someone who can take on a role as a seller slash merchant, but they didn't create that manufactured good for you. Somebody else did. They just delivered it to you.
Right, right,
Now, if you want to send it back to them, then maybe you can negotiate the document by saying that they are able to take it because they can deposit it, and then they'll go ahead and continue the delivery to a merchant, someone who can give them value for it so they can deposit the price.
right.
But other than that, like he said, he gonna sue Chase and stuff. Like they gonna eat him alive. If it's not about that beginning contract, that consumer credit contract, he is not gonna win. It's gonna be bad, and it's gonna show he is incompetent. He gonna irritate the judge and everybody else, and ultimately, he gonna end up paying and for all the fees.
Wow.
It's gonna be a waste. But a balance transfer occur when you're using your credit cards to pay the amount that you owe on your accepted credit card that is due to you making those purchases. So whenever you use your accepted credit card with a company and you make all of these different purchases and they send you your statement in the mail, that's them transferring the balance to you.
Okay.
Whatever amount of purchases you made, they transfer the balance to you. That's a balance transfer. You're also going to be noticing the S behind balance transfers in a lot of your agreements because we're also going to be transferring that balance into a merchant so that they can make whatever necessarily deposit that they need to make of that price to the seller's account.
Right.
So we're always going to get purchases, balances, transfers because there's going to be more than one person to conduct this medium of exchange.
Makes sense.
Discovery is going to lead you that when we dig into these words, there's two sides. There's always two things going on to make sure that all parties benefit. Any questions or anything to
Nope.
elaborate on?
Nope. Makes sense.
Okay. What credit cards do you have with a seller slash merchant? When payment is tendered to you, you receive one form of payment. So just receiving your bill alone is you receiving one form of payment. You receive payment of a check that is used as a credit card. The merchant is going to use the information off of that check to transfer credit to that account. They're going to get that information off of that card, which is considered to be a check by the CFPB. The information is used as if you actually presented your credit card to pay for that transaction, as if you actually use maybe an accepted credit card or maybe even yours account number. Transfer and delivery to a merchant of your actual check, the actual bill, your good, is going to allow or authorize a transaction to occur that's going to pay the seller as if you actually had a card present. And you're going to see like verbiage similar to them making the transactions as if your card was ever there. You're going to see that in a lot of agreements too. They're going to be letting you know that they're going to be accepting the statement, the security certificate, whatever instrument you use, and be performing with it as if you actually presented a credit card for them to make payment with.
Yeah, I recognize that.
Okay, yeah, it's wild that they say that. Like, what? Like, okay, cool. They're going to be using the good that we receive from the seller to present and pay to the merchant.
Okay.
Complete the transaction. When you initiate a contract, you will receive an accepted credit card, one that you can make purchases with in public at department stores, things like that. Using these cards is going to help bring way or make way for a balance transfer. If you do not use your accepted credit card and make these purchases, then they're not going to have any balance to transfer to you monthly.
Right.
So you want to make these purchases so that you receive a balance, a transfer of its balance, so that you may use that balance that was transferred to you to pay or to meet your satisfy your obligation to actually pay. The corps transfer the balance to you, and you transfer the balance from your credit card to your account. That's how the medium of exchange is going to go. It's going to come from one person to come from a person to someone and to another.
Makes sense.
You follow me? Everything good? You with me?
Yes.
Okay. What is a person to person transaction? A person to person transaction is one that a seller makes with you. So in person, you may go to the dealership, AT&T, T-Mobile, and you may conduct a person to person transaction. So that's a person to person transaction. And it's also one that a merchant makes with you whenever you use your credit cards. So whenever you decide to accept the credit card and the consumer gets to swiping, that's a person, a dead person, corp to corp transaction, consumer to them.
Okay.
When you decide to use your check and you deliver it to a merchant, that is a person to person transaction. That is the consumer who is given, like in my position, I just get the bank sent me a voucher. That's a person to person transaction right there. I then accepted that voucher and I forwarded it back to them or back to that merchant as a person to person transaction so that that voucher turns into a coupon so that they can pay me.
Right.
They can't pay me with the voucher alone until I authorize them to pay me. Once I authorize them to pay me, then I give the order, and now they have a discount on how or a fund transfer that they can use, and they can transfer that balance to my actual account, credit it versus me giving them money that I deposited. They're gonna give me money.
Makes sense.
So there's going to be a distinction between vouchers and coupons. 9 times out of 10, straight up voucher is going to be coming from someone who serves as a bank. They're going to be sending you a voucher. They're going to do direct business with you. You just have to give the order because 9 times out of 10 is going to prove that they debited you. So in order for them to credit you, you want to give them some type of voucher to do that, some type of discount. No different than when they send us coupons. They ask us to pay, but they don't make us pay cash. They give us something or they offer us something to pay with. And I offered them my deposit voucher so that they can pay my account the right way and credit me. So I'll definitely show you an example of that. It shouldn't take them long. I'm gonna overnight it and then they'll get it tomorrow. So for as long as they get it before 5 o'clock, I should see the credit. And then my next statement, I'll post it so everybody can see it. But it never stops. It no matter what you're dealing with or whatever the circumstance is, we're always dealing with the elements of offer, acceptance, and consideration. And if ever we give up that social security number, that account is a credit account indeed. Any debits that was made to the account, you can switch over to credit. If you look at all your bills that has debit/credit, if you receive some debits, then go ahead and transfer those debits to credits.
And for our banks, when we transfer that over, there's probably, I mean, I guess for our not the bank, but you would probably still see a bank behind the credit union, yeah?
Oh yeah,
Or do
because
they just
they'll do business with an FDIC.
okay. Even if
And
they are themselves the what is that, the NCUA
the
or
right, I was just about to tell you that. Now, sometimes they work in the capacity, like I'm working with Navy Federal right now, and Navy
uh,
Federal have NCUA, National Credit Association. They have insurance, so once they get that item, they're able to obtain that obtainable interest or that obtainable insurance, and that'll cover the cost of the good, and they'll pay the price to my account. What you thinking?
I'm thinking it's amazing how this information is starting to click more and more.
Good,
Wow.
good. We make person to person transactions. They're people. We not a person. We're an individual. It's not an individual to person transaction. It's person to person every time because the individual doesn't enter into commerce.
Right.
We watch it all happen. we co-sign it, so we definitely from the outside looking in. We just have to begin to feel like an individual. So that we know that as an individual, if we represent ourselves as free, anything we touch is free. Anything we associate ourselves with is free. So we have to conduct ourselves and have obedience and make sure we move in diligence and get the work done.
Nice.
We're hired with a job to do, and this one that'll set us free for real. We don't have to work hard at all.
Wow. How long have
We
you been studying this?
oh, so law in general, I really went to law school. So I graduated college studying law, the field, period. Narrow in on this, I'm gonna say about maybe 5, 6 years now. Completely
Wow.
free, I'm gonna say about 4 years.
Wow.
It's pretty boring. Look, it's pretty boring, but it opened up a way for me to help people, in real life.
Yep.
Like if I
Wow.
can, but it make way. So it's
No,
humbling to
it's
hope,
crazy. It
you know.
changes everything. Your perspective is definitely different.
Yeah, it changed your whole world. And
Yeah.
have you looking at people like, mm. Like, I don't understand why you saying this. I don't understand the debate. Like people want to make people feel bad so bad that they'll pick anything to, fight and argue it about. And it's like, really, everybody's not doing right.
Crazy.
But, those who know, and those who don't is clearly experiencing the world.
Right, right.
Definitely from a completely different light. Like, because it's real deal heaven on earth. Like, for real. We're here to live while we can, and it should be free because we're not here forever.
Right.
When we deliver to a third party, it's a charge to add funds to our account. So that's what we did. We're charging them when we deliver the goods to them, just like we were charged to add those funds to our account.
Right.
And they're going to add it to a deposit account or any access account of ours. You'll see that language on a lot of the back of your bills as well,
Right.
that they'll deposit into a deposit account or access account. But they're telling you that their deposit is this negotiable instrument, this check, this credit card. They'll use the information to make this deposit, even if you don't physically deliver it to them. If you give me the information off of that check, then I could go ahead and make this happen. They will use your remittance, your payment as a credit card, just as if you was actually have present the card person to person in order to transfer the balance using your other credit account to pay another. So we're not going to be using our air quotes credit card that we receive from them. We're going to be using the actual statement to actually pay. So one credit card is given to us to make purchases with, and one credit card is given to us to pay with. That's commerce. That's how it go, and that's how the medium of exchange happens and occurs without using cash money.
Nice.
Ah! You made it through like a good 180
Mhm.
questions. So, just reviewing articles 1 to, having your exam and finishing 3, like, how do you feel? Do you feel a little bit more confident with being able to, or going to your documents and looking at them now? Like, do you feel like you have a purpose or a reason for wanting to even read them?
Yes, definitely.
Okay,
Definitely
good.
makes me
Because
want to go through mines right now.
look, go ahead. Now you're free to go and look because now you have a little bit of information. Now you actually do have something to go discover. So now when you go and look, you're going to be looking for person to person balance transfer. You're going to be looking for credit limits. Now you have something to discover and it'll lead you to read. But that's what you have me for too, because next week we're going to actually be looking at it. We have no choice. We're done. Now it's time to get to the steak and potatoes, I guess, if you like meat. Look, now it's time to get
Okay.
down. And I'm
Right
gonna
on.
walk with you every step of the way. So if there's not gonna be pretty much anything that you do alone, I am gonna be guiding you. I am gonna be expecting you to have a little bit independency because I literally just told you everything. But when it comes to reading, that's what I really want you to focus on and not paying the bill because you want to learn how to read everything with or without me. You
Right,
want
right.
to be able to pick up those warranties without me. So I'm going to be taking you there so that, you can learn that and see that and get familiar. Because, I mean, it becomes hard for you to look at your bill the same after gathering this information. So being able to not look at it the same and pick it up and read it and comprehend it is going to hit different for you. And it's going to force you to act. It's going to force you to perform. I want, I want that when we perform, it's nice, easy, and smooth. Ready. Just not they ain't got to think hard at all. We got to do is pay attention.
Right, right. Oh,
That's
thank you
it.
so much. That is so it's so interesting how we went. I mean, from the very beginning, like I couldn't even understand you, but now it's like, wow.
Oh, good.
Thank you so
Good.
much.
You're so welcome.
Would you be able to get the to print it out the volume 3?
Yes, I'll send it to you. So I offered it to you, but everybody don't get it. So that's why I didn't send it. But because we did cover volume 3, you do get it. So along
Oh,
with this recording, I'll send it.
right on.
And then I
Thank you
have
so
to
much.
allow you in too.
Cool.
So I'll see you next week. Send me any
Thank
bills,
you.
any agreements. Of course, I already
Okay.
have some, but and next week I want you to review these videos, and at the end of next week, after we have our session, we're gonna be looking at a bill, strictly a bill. No more
Yeah.
questions. We getting straight to the business.
Right on. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Let me go ahead and stop sharing and stop recording.